Hey RATBAGGERS, it's Jade. Quick first impressions review of Fera, Sundered Tribes. It's out now. It's basically a Monster Hunter style kind of game with some nice plus points but also some negatives. So I'm going to give you the breakdown now. It's out just literally yesterday in early access on Steam. And they look like they've got plans to come to console soon. So is it worth buying? Is it worth investing your time? That's what I'm going to tell you today. So leave a like if you find this video useful and let's go. So first off, the recommended specs for this game seem to be way low compared to actually how you're going to get it running nicely. That's something to consider straight away. I'm running it on a 390 and yeah, it ran okay, but there was still maybe a few little hitches here and there. I've seen a lot of reports from the reviews already saying it's definitely needed optimization. Also, a lot of keyboard and mouse players are really complaining about certain inputs and stuff. I haven't had any problems with controls. There's definitely some negative points with this game for sure. It's like really early access, but there are some good things, like this glide mechanic and tether system is really cool. The fact that you can just spin around and around and do this kind of stuff. And this really looks to be what's going to set it apart from other Monster Hunter style games. The fact that you can also mount a lot of the large creatures eventually. While tethering doesn't necessarily use up your stamina, gliding does, and at the moment when you're so low level, it's just not as fun because you often will run out of stamina pretty quick. You can gain it by pretty much plummeting down and getting a small increase in the bar, but it often ends up with you just on the floor. Now I understand you've got to progress and there's a bunch of skill trees that you can go up and increase, but yeah, it could do with a really fun boost at the beginning just to give players a real good sense of the fun gameplay mechanics before you start adding a bit more grind. I've just took out this creature and this is pretty much the only creature that you'll necessarily be hunting down and getting any kind of resources from for a while, as literally nearly every other creature took me out very quickly in 1 or 2 hits. Controls are in need of work. They're meant to be suited for a controller, which is great to hear. Absolutely stand using controller whenever possible, but it does feel a bit janky and just slow. Like when you're tapping to do an attack, it takes time to wind. And again, this might all be part of the progression system where eventually you unlock skills, you're going to increase your stamina and basically get better. But if a game doesn't draw you in with its main concept and it's fun and rewarding, I don't think many people are going to stick around to get to that point. So it definitely needs improvements. Some other cool features are that you've got a whole village for you to come and help you. You can recruit villagers and they'll basically come and gather the resources that you've slain and then take them back to your home village. Here you can go ahead and start setting up different types of buildings, upgrades, and this stuff could be fun. But again, it's locked behind a lot of grind. There is a small tutorial section and you have to kind of follow it so you can go and explore a lot of the other areas. So it's definitely more of a sim management game than I think some people might expect. Although I do think the devs have done a pretty good job of explaining this with some parts of their obviously Steam page and stuff, that this is a core part of the game. Getting your upgrades, crafting new weapons and armour is what you'll be doing. It takes a couple of minutes for some of it. Weirdly though, once I got my armour crafted, it never actually changed my appearance. It looks like you only get a change of appearance once you've reached the final form of an armour piece, which is basically making it refined and better. And that was kind of disappointing. There's no ability, as far as I can tell at least, to move your village anywhere. It's obviously a core part of the game is diving down each and every time to go and explore different biomes. And there's various different resources that you can go ahead and get, although definitely some of them seemed a bit tougher to find than others. You're also meant to be able to recruit other villagers by looking for smoke. I went around for ages and I just could not find any more. You do get a choice of different weapons like an axe, a hammer, a spear, but they're pretty unadventurous in the early days. Again, nothing you wouldn't expect. It's okay to have to grind and get some better weapons, but things like the hammer are just awful and horrible to use since it's slow and a lot of enemies are just going to be way too fast. This is about the only other creature that you'll be taking on a lot of in the early days, but it doesn't seem to have any resources that you can actually get from it. There's lots of things like pearls and rocks that you have to collect from certain trees and special rocks. And it's the same thing that once you get down here, setting up a portal so your villagers can come and help, that's pretty cool. But yeah, harvesting resources is just a bit hit and miss. Definitely needs like a lock-in so you're not flailing around trying to smash stuff. There's lots of gorgeous ruins and places to go and explore, but there's not much reward for doing so. Again, a couple of certain resources might spawn in them, but otherwise there was no like big loot chest that I found with a ton of components or anything like that. I do feel like the game probably needs a big boost in stuff. One of the early game tutorials was to go and find this moondrop pearl in the ruins, and these things seem to be kind of scattered in and around all over the place, but not necessarily always telling you exactly where they're going to be. So this is kind of meant to be like the extra loot that you can find, that you're obviously going to need to upgrade your armor and weapons, as well as being able to maybe unlock new buildings. But yeah, a whole massive ruins like this with only just one item as a reward, I do feel like it needs boosting. There are different armors that you can go ahead and get eventually. Again though, you've got some sort of progression tree where you have to unlock certain ones first, and as I said, you then upgrade them with different resources, and then you can maybe make some different styles. It's got some really nice polished stuff in terms of the glossary, showing some of the art of the creatures and the resources, so you know what to expect with some of them. I love this kind of stuff, really showing you exactly weaknesses and strengths of enemies, and then it gives a lot of little tutorials if you need to recap on anything, so that's good too. The map is pretty large in terms of some of the areas that you'll be able to explore, including a mushroom forest and a desert area. You've got a whole page dedicated to your villagers where you can check on their progress and skills, and then your own skills, increasing and basically specialising in the 4 main weapons. So I reckon there really could be some fun to be had here once you get going and unlock a lot of these and start specialising it. There's a ton of ways to go ahead and increase your powers and skills as well, with traversal and just basic stats too, like increasing your health or your stamina. But yeah, these upgrades can't come quick enough. When it comes to just gathering certain resources and in combat, your stamina just runs out way too quick. Now that could be a relatively early fix, because no game is fun if you literally cannot kill one creature without your stamina draining 2 or 3 times before you've managed to kill it. Obviously this game is all about taking on larger creatures, so it's not maybe taking on hundreds of little smaller ones, but I still felt like these lower level creatures that I took out just simply were just boring, because the stamina was just such an issue, having to regain or wait for it. And same thing goes when it comes to harvesting. It really should be a separate mechanic that you gather resources, doesn't actually take any of your stamina maybe, or at least is a bit more forgiving. It's got a pretty similar system to Valheim and lots of other games lately, where you'll add an add-on and that will unlock new recipes, although you directly go and look at the recipes here by adding this new tanning bench. So I reckon you could potentially make your little village look really cozy, and just with lots of different types of decor and these type of buildings, make it really feel loved. You can track enemies, which is pretty cool, although it's not that complicated, but you'll find little body parts that are rubbed off, like maybe some hairs or the ubiquitous poo, and then basically there'll be like a line of wind gusting you over to where the main enemy will be. And again, this is pretty cool, you find these scattered all around, and so it's not that hard to go and find some of the creatures you need. So overall, it is definitely a game like the style of Monster Hunter. It's going to be more slow and deliberate in how you're meant to take on enemies. You're meant to really get leveled up and take on creatures with the right types of weapons and armour. But right now, the start is just simply way too slow, way too grindy, and just not fun enough. It's also not responsive enough with the controls, and I think a lot of people might be still surprised by the fact it is definitely more of a simulation game in terms of getting your villagers to hopefully go and do some of the work for you. I do like that mix, it can be interesting, it's certainly appealing to me a little bit more than other games like Aska recently, but that it seems too much leaning into simulation. Obviously I have to give it more of a fair try and put some more time into it, but ultimately it just wasn't fun enough for me to continue beyond maybe playing it for the first hour. I've never been a huge fan of Monster Hunter style games. I always do find it's quite repetitive going after the same creatures, and that preparation for it can be kind of monotonous. But certainly this one grabbed my attention because of the art style. I thought it was pretty nice and colourful, and let's have a few more survival mechanics in it, but not really a survival game. It's definitely more of a Monster Hunter RPG simulation game. At its price point at the moment, $25 or £22, that's pretty expensive considering the amount of competition it's got, with obviously Monster Hunter dominating, and you've still got the free-to-play Dauntless, I still think, flashing around somewhere. Given the fact that so much of the game needs some work and the multiplayer is still in beta, I probably would have gone for a lot cheaper price, and it might have been getting some kind of reviews on Steam. They absolutely should revise as well their optimization listed on Steam, because it's just flat lying. Again, I think people are looking at the minimum or the recommended and feeling that they'll be able to run this pretty well, and having some pretty horrible optimization issues. That stuff can all be fixed and it can be improved for sure, but ultimately the damage might be done if players are really feeling like the game's not advertising correctly the right kind of gear and running properly. So yeah, one to leave to cook for me. I wouldn't maybe go and buy this straight away. Go and see if it's on sale in a few months' time, or just keep an eye on it and see how many improvements it gets added over the next few months. I want to support small games, especially small indie titles. It's really hard making a game. It's really hard leaning into a niche that's so popular with Monster Hunter World and stuff. And there are some good little seeds here that I think could develop into something really cool. But you've got to give players that instant gratification in the early days, that hit and feeling that they're going to be able to build a really cool village and just make the game overall a lot more responsive. But for sure, gliding around has been really fun. There you go. That's my review. Leave it from now, I would say, until it's cooked a bit more, improved its optimization, and yeah, maybe added a few better soundtracks, as it did start to jar me straight away. That seemed to only be like one song just continuously playing the whole time. Agree, disagree? Let me know in the comment section, and check out Fera, Sundered Tribes on Steam, and make your own mind up. Until next time, Ratbags, laters.